The Volusia County Speedway is located 20 miles west-northwest of the World Center of Racing, Daytona Beach. And that's where we are today for stop number 5 of the 1991 Busch Grand National Series. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Allen, and thanks so much for joining us on TNN for continuing live NASCAR coverage. Since the Volusia County Speedway was paved in 1989, the first 2 events in the Busch Series have had distinctly different personalities. What will we see here today? That's what we're here to find out. One of the stories that will make this race different from the previous 2 revolves around tires. And Mark Garrow, Hoosier and Goodyear are on the same type of tire for the first time this season.
Goodyear had been battling Hoosier with its radial tire in the first 4 races. It was simply no contest. Today, a little more even up. 24 of the 31 cars on Goodyear's, 7 on Hoosier's, but 4 of those 7 are in the top 10. One thing is certain, whether it's a Goodyear or a Hoosier, both tires are better suited for this racetrack this year than the tires that were brought here in 1990. We shouldn't see a race, a garage area by race's end that looks like a used car lot in downtown Baghdad.
We've had 5 races this season and 5 different pole winners. And the man fastest for today's race is on pit road with our Bill Hennessy.
Chuck is starting on the pole here at Volusia County Speedway. It's got to be kind of special for you to be out in front of all these cars.
Well, it's the best place to start. I just hope when 200 laps are up, we're still there out in front of all these cars and try to win this thing.
What do you anticipate in today's race? You're up front and everything. There is some question about right front tires here.
Well, that's the question about all the tires, in my opinion. It's a warm day. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's quite hot. And this racetrack is so round, the tires really don't get much opportunity to cool. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing, is how much the tires blister. I think everybody's going to blister a little bit, but it's just a question of how much. But I think Hensley Racing's got the Nescafe Classic Pontiac working pretty good. And hopefully we won't abuse any one tire any more than any of the others. And with that in mind, maybe we can make the distance.
Did we get a real indication of what these cars can do since they qualified in the cool of the evening last night, rather than what they're going to have to run under the conditions of being under the sunshine and hot?
No, we've never run here in the daytime before, and it is quite warm, so I think that nobody knows exactly for sure just what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting.
Chuck Bound, the man starting on the pole here at Volusia County.
Today's telecast of the Busch Spring 200 is being brought to you by Haviland Motor Oil. Get the most out of your car. By Eagle One Car Care Products. Eagle One is visual perfection. By Champion Batteries, when you can't wait to get started. And by Budweiser, the king of beers, with that distinctively clean, crisp, cold taste. Nothing beats a Bud.
In America, your car is not just something you own. It's a part of your life. To give your car complete protection, Haviland is introducing new Haviland Formula 3 motor oil with not one but 3 kinds of protection against heat stress, starting friction, and engine dirt. New Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
She may not care the visual perfection took years to develop. She may not care that visual perfection state-of-the-art technology produces an unsurpassed, deep, rich, brilliant color. Well, maybe she does. Visual perfection from Eagle One, the ultimate auto polish.
It's your boss on the phone. He says, do you still work here or not?
I called the airline like you said, and sure, there's a later flight. Tomorrow.
When you just can't wait to get started, start with the Champion from Walmart. Pound for pound, the most powerful automotive battery you can buy. Just $49.96 at Walmart every day.
Born of the finest natural ingredients, then brewed and aged with extra care for that clean, crisp, cold taste. The taste only Budweiser can deliver.
Nothing beats a Budweiser.
The king of beers.
Nothing beats a Bud.
The crowd is filling in here at the Volusia County Speedway, a half-mile track, as we mentioned, a little bit of distance from Daytona Beach. Before we get things going today, we want to tell you a little bit about the most recent event in the Busch Grand National Series, the Miller Classic up in Martinsville, Virginia, won for the first time this season by a Busch Series regular. It was an all-bias fly Hoosier Tire front row as Elton Sawyer and Dave Resendiz led the field for the start of the Grand National race. Goodyear radio-mounted Bobby Labonte got under Sawyer to take the lead on the 19th lap, with defending series champion Chuck Bound also slipping into second. Goodyear tires never trailed again. Harry Gant dominated the mid-portion of the event until he stopped for gas under the yellow on lap 126, surrendering the lead to Virginia driver Jimmy Hensley. Gant's day ended when he was involved in this crash coming off turn 4 on lap 155. Bound and Tracy Leslie were involved but continued. Robert Presley could not. Hensley led the rest of the way to garner his first victory at his home track since 1988. Dale Jarrett was second with Kenny Wallace third, Bobby Labonte fourth, and pole sitter Elton Sawyer fifth. Entering the fifth race today, the Grand National points leader is St. Louis, Missouri's Kenny Wallace. Harry Gant is second, Dale Jarrett third, Dale Earnhardt fourth. Bobby Labonte is the closest series regular to Wallace in fifth. So that brings you up to date here as we're ready to run race number 5 of the Busch Grand National Series. Mark Garrow, a little bit different from last year's event. That's what we're expecting today. 19 races of the season last year had a number of caution flags, but nothing like this one. There were 16 caution flags last year in this event.
And the tempo for that was set almost instantaneously. They threw the green flag. They went down to turn 2, multi-car wreck. That set the tempo for that race. A total of 76 of the 200 laps in 1990 were run under caution.
And a bit of irony for you, if you will. Last year, in that first lap incident, the current Busch points leader, Kenny Wallace, and Bobby Labonte were both involved. They're hoping to do a lot better than that today. The Busch Series points, as it sits right now, of course, has Kenny Wallace on top of the standings. The positions from there, the next 3 positions are occupied by Dale Jarrett, Harry Gant, Dale Earnhardt, and then Bobby Labonte. And this is to the point in the season now where the drivers are starting to see the Busch Series regulars exclusively. The Winston Cup drivers will start to fall off in the points.
Well, they're starting to get a chance now to duke it out amongst themselves, and they'll really get down to deciding who is going to be the champion. What a difference a year makes. At this time last year, Kenny Wallace was 10th in the points, minus 125 points, and Chuck Bound, the pole sitter, was 6th, 98 points out. He's now 18th spot.
And now let's go down for the command that will start today's race.
We're doing it now, Robert.
.31 V6 engines have come to life on pit road here in Barberville, Florida. The field is made up of 14 Oldsmobiles, 5 Pontiacs, 1 Ford, 5 Chevrolets, and 6 Buicks.
Should also mention that there are 9 rookies in this field, led by Jeff Gordon, who'll start outside row number 2. He's the 19-year-old. It's mainly a sprint car race. Moving over to the Grand National Series this year, his best qualifying effort to date.
And we'll be back to set the starting grid for the Spring 200 in just a moment.
They're already collector's items. Do you have yours? Max Race Cards, featuring all your favorite NASCAR stars, the great moments, the men behind the scenes. Great to collect or trade. 1991 sets are here, and when they're gone, there won't be any more. This handsome 240 card set is only $33. For more details or to order, call 1-800-825-MAX. That's 1-800-825-MAX. Sets are going fast. Order your Max Race Cards now.
If your car's hesitating and hard to start, it's time for a tune-up, right? Not if you've a clogged fuel injector. Then it's time for Come Out Extra Fuel Injector Cleaner. Just one bottle of Gum Out Extra added to a tank of gas unclogs fuel injectors better than detergent gasolines alone. Gum Out frees your car from hard start, sluggish performance, and stalling. So before you get an expensive tune-up, try Gum Out Extra for fuel injectors and carburetors.
Gum Out is available at Pep Boys.
If you can't wait, you need the News Weekly of Motoring Auto Week. If you can't wait for driving impressions, get Auto Week. Auto Week drives them all and tells you about them first. If you can't wait for car news, get Auto Week. Auto Week covers it all. The great old cars, the auto shows. Auto Week's columnists are controversial and fast. And if you can't wait for racing news, get the News Weekly of Motoring. Auto Week races to bring you the winningest coverage first. If you can't wait, get Auto Week, the News Weekly of Motoring, now. Call 1-800-354-6100 for a full year. 52 issues at the special TV price of $19.95. Just 38 cents an issue. Save $80 off the cover price. You've thought about it. Stop waiting. Do it now. Call 1-800-354-6100 for the News Weekly of Motoring.
Experience the power of NHRA Championship drag racing excitement. Win an all-expense-paid trip for two to the Goodies Mid-South Nationals in Memphis, May 2nd through the 5th. Plus, get your chance behind the wheel with a full scholarship to the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School in Gainesville, Florida. Just send your name, address, and phone number on a postcard to this address. It must be postmarked by April 16th, and I'll announce the winner live April 23rd here at Nashville Now.
The field is on the second of 4 pace laps here at the Volusia County Speedway. Let's show you the starting grid for today's Spring 200. On the pole, Chuck Bound, the 7th time in his career. Robert Presley outside him. In the second row, we're looking for Bobby Dotter and rookie Jeff Gordon. Row number 3 will be Jimmy Hensley and Jeff Burton. The 4th row, Elton Sawyer and Joe Nemechek, nearby Lakeland, Florida. The 5th row, Dave Rezendes and rookie David Green.
In row number 6, it'll be Ward Burton and Troy Beebe. Row 7, Kenny Wallace and Bobby Labonte. The next row will be Butch Miller and Tom Peck, followed by Ed Ferree and Tracy Leslie. And rounding out the top 20, Steve Grissom and Ed Barrier.
21st spot, Pat Jones. Then Tommy Houston, the defending race champion, is 22nd. The next row will be Jeff Green and Cecil Eunice. Then Ken Schrader and Rich Burgess. Todd Bodine and Lonnie Rush make up the next row. Then it's Tommy Ellis and Gary Neese. Actually, Richard Lassiter will be in that car. A late change there. Davey Johnson, the provisional position. We are going green in just 1 lap, according to NASCAR officials.
The lights are off atop the Pontiac safety car. Chuck Bound, Robert Presley getting ready to lead them down to the green flag. Will we see a race like 1990, or will it be a brand new version? We're about to find out.
Well, it's daytime conditions. The weather conditions here are simply beautiful. A little bit humid, as you might expect from Florida this time of year. The field is ready to go. The Pontiac pace car is on pit road. The green flag is out, and we're underway in the Spring 200. Just like last year, the outside pole sitter has gotten the jump on Chuck Bound. Robert Presley from Asheville, North Carolina, has jumped into the early lead here as the field has sorted itself out nicely. We are already under more green flag laps than we were for the first caution flag here last year. Bound is sitting back in the second position with Bobby Dotter third, Jimmy Hensley 4th, and Elton Sawyer 5th.
It's been quite a while since Robert Presley has won on the Busch Grand National Series. You have to go back to August of 1989 at Rougemont, North Carolina, so he'd certainly like to get back in the winner's circle right now. And you can see he's opened up quite a gap over Chuck Bound as he crosses the start-finish line once again.
And one of the most important things right now is for drivers on the outside to try to get them tucked down on the inside, because the outside groove is not the fast way around this speedway this early in the race.
Jimmy Hensley's on the move right now. He looks to the inside of Bobby Daughters. You see that blue car on the bottom of the racetrack coming out of turn number 4, looking for the 3rd spot.
On Bobby Labonte, you can see the 44 car hung out there to dry on the outside. That's not where he wants to be, but look at the margin between Robert Presley and Chuck Bound. Bound had excellent final practice times, 2/10 quicker than anyone else. He had them shaking their head, but Robert Presley is the one who's trying to check out on the field. As now the field is beginning to sort itself out nicely. Hensley is closed in on Bound in the battle for second.
You can see 3 cars running there coming out of turn 4, hooked together. They're battling for second, and behind that, a major gaggle of race cars. They're battling back there for the top 10 positions, side by side, 2 wide in turns 1 and 2.
And the lead car of that second group, of course, is Chuck Bound, the defending Busch Series champion. Jimmy Hensley, the winner in the most recent event in Martinsville, Virginia. And Elton Sawyer, the highest qualified Hoosier tire driver. That is one of the stories we'll be watching today, is look at Hensley. He's trying to move under Bound up into the second position.
Interesting battle here. Jimmy Hensley is the nephew of Hubert Hensley, who owns Chuck Bound's race car. They went at it quite heavy at times in 1990. Looks like they're picking up where they left off from last season as they're going head-to-head early in this spring 200. And you see Hensley again pressuring Bound. Bound using a little bit of a different groove, a little higher groove. Hensley now looking to the inside.
And he has the position. And the last time by, he gave a little nudge to Chuck Bound saying, hey, I'm here. I'm faster than you. How about moving out of the way? Bound in, and look at Elton Sawyer has moved down on the inside, and he's trying to take over the 3rd spot. Let's see if he gets enough bite down low.
Sawyer on the Hoosier tires, just one of the Hoosier tired cars in the top 4 right now, but just behind Bound in the 5th spot, the white car. He is also on Hoosier tires, so a pretty even Steven battle at this particular point, as you still see the battle for second still red hot going on to the backstretch.
Well, Jimmy Hensley is looking to build on the success at Martinsville. This was a race team that came into the season unsponsored. It badly needed that victory to stay in Grand National competition. In fact, before the race, Hensley told us that if it hadn't been for that victory in Martinsville, they might have had to fold their doors on the race shop. That victory bought them at least 4 more races. And as a result of that win, a sponsor is interested. There were conversations over the weekend with car owner Don Beverly that they think may actually lead to getting the dollars that are necessary to run the rest of the season.
See the cars backing off a little bit on the backstretch. See a little bit of smoke as those cars pass in turn 4. A little bit of a spin there just moments ago, but the track is clear as Hensley continues to hold on to that number 2 spot.
And the question is, what did Robert Presley find in that final practice session? There was a session at about 11:15 this morning in which every car went out. Chuck Bound spent the least amount of time of anyone out there. He went out for 8 laps, posted times right at around the 17-second mark, while everyone else was running about 17.2 or 17.3. He was happy with what he had. There was no reason to use his car up any further. Sat there and watched everyone else practice. Robert Presley spent as much time as anyone else out there trying to get the handle. It's obvious he's found something at this point. You begin to get a sense of how the field is already well stretched out. There are 9 rookies in this race, of which 7 are official candidates for NASCAR's Busch Grand National Rookie of the Year program. You also begin to get an idea of how this racetrack is set up. As the cars come off of turn 4, there really isn't a straightaway as such. They will drift out toward the start-finish line on the front stretch and toward the outside wall on the back stretch. And there's really no point, as Chuck Bound said in our interview with Bill Hennessy a few moments ago, where the tires get a rest. Here's a good battle on the speedway between Kenny Wallace and Dave Rezendes. Wallace, of course, the current Busch Grand National points leader.
He started this race 13th, and he's been chopping his way through the field very steadily. He's now looking to the outside of Dave Rezendes. A very dangerous thing to do here. The outside groove definitely a lot slicker, but he gets a good bite coming out of turn 4.
Last year, this race, and we keep calling your attention to it because it's such a completely Jekyll and Hyde personality from the previous year. Last year, the driver said the groove on this track was only about a half a lane wide. Now, here's Chuck Bound moving around on the outside, and it already looks like that there are 2 racing grooves here. As Wallace, and there's problems on the Tom Peck car from the right front portion of that machine. But the field stays green. There is a black flag that will be coming out. He will be called to the pits for consultation. Tom Peck from McConnellsburg, Pennsylvania, another one of those unsponsored drivers who had such a wonderful year in 1990, finished 5th in the series points. They're in another team in bad need of money. Comes to the attention of his crew, Reds Cagle.
They came into this race ninth in the point standings, and this certainly is going to hurt as they go to work on the right side of that unsponsored Oldsmobile. Meanwhile, that battle between Kenny Wallace and Dave Rezendes still rages around this half-mile racetrack. A little bit of an advantage now for Wallace in the Cox-treated lumber Pontiac on the outside.
That's Goodyear tires on the Wallace car, Hoosiers on the Rezendes car. And Wallace finally dispatches it back further a position. Right behind him is David Green, another one of the rookie candidates who is running Goodyear tires. Sat on the pole for the Goodies 300 in Daytona, and he is closed in on Hensley, and he's going to try to make his move here in the next couple of laps. We've got 23-24 now laps on the board of the Spring 200. We'll be back with more action from Barberville, Florida in just a moment.
Nothing beats the sound of cheers. Nothing beats clean, crisp, and cold. Nothing beats the king of beers. Yeah, nothing. Nothing beats the bud. Yeah, nothing. Nothing beats the bud. Nothing. Nothing beats the Budweiser. Ice cold Budweiser. Nothing beats the bud.
This engine's being slowly destroyed because its startup oil's in the pan, not in the engine, causing 70 to 80% of mechanical engine wear. Use Slick 50 and you treat the engine, not the oil. It creates a slippery coating that can protect and reduce wear for over 50,000 miles and help improve performance, increase gas mileage, and reduce operating costs. Slick 50 engine treatment, because starting your engine is a terrible thing to do.
The only thing I like better than winning is winning big. Now, you can win big, too, at Western Steer.
You can get more of this free when you buy one of these. You'll get a free frequent buyer's card with your first purchase of a Dale Earnhardt's Winter Circle steak meal. Then, each time you select one of these steak specials, you're one lap closer to qualifying for free Earnhardt posters and caps and a free steak meal. Available at participating Western Steers, the official restaurant of America's #1 race team.
If motorcycling has seemed out of reach, maybe you just haven't reached for the right motorcycle. Legendary Inline 4 performance is now within your reach. Introducing the Nighthawk 750, only from Honda.
It took 29 laps, but we've got our first caution on the speedway for an incident coming down the front straight. That was the leaderboard. As of this moment, 30 laps, Robert Presley, Jimmy Hensley, Elton Sawyer, Chuck Bound, and Bobby Dotter. But there were a number of cars involved in an incident as coming off of turn 4. We had one car spinning sideways. We have a replay on it. Let's take a look at that right now. Now, that's the Jeff Gordon car, which triggered all the mayhem. Sliding into that is Ed Barrier, Jeff Green, Rich Burgess. The Cecil Eunice car is there. We also see damage on the Tommy Houston machine and also Ward Burton. So that is 6 cars involved in our first caution of the event. It came out on lap number 29, and a number of the cars that have been damaged have come on to pit road for service. But before that caution came out, we noticed, Mark, that Robert Presley's lead was shrinking and shrinking noticeably.
Jimmy Hensley, Elton Sawyer, and Chuck Bound, the cars running 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, were definitely making tracks on the leader. They had cut the gap from perhaps 8 car lengths down to about 4 before that caution flag. We also noticed that Kenny Wallace may be the quickest car on the racetrack. Once he broke free of Dave Rezendes, he was quickly tracking down Bobby Dotter, who was in the 5th spot. Wallace currently riding number 6 and looking very, very strong in this race as we see the Richie Burgess machine, heavy damage to the front end of that race car. And it certainly will not be as competitive as it once was when the green flag came out just a few minutes ago.
Well, the Dover Plains, New York driver has done as much service as he can in the time that he has, trying to stay as close to the lead lap as possible. But he's being held up because the pace car had already passed a position on the track. He will go at least 1 lap down. The field is reformed, and we will go back to green flag action here in just 1 more lap as Mike Harwood tells the field to form up behind the Pontiac safety car.
We noticed that Jeff Gordon, who was involved right at the beginning of that wreck, may have suffered the least amount of damage of any race car, which happens sometimes. You sort of get spun free of the accident. His car damaged, just some right side damage on that fourth Thunderbird.
As we go back to green flag action, Robert Presley is your race leader with Hensley second, Elton Sawyer third, Chuck Bound fourth, Bobby Dotter fifth. The man on the move, Kenny Wallace, all the way up to sixth, and they will hold him at least another lap now. That will give us a chance to take you a little bit further back through the field. In seventh position is Dave Rezendes, followed by David Green, Butch Miller, Joe Nemechek, Troy Beebe, Jeff Burton, Ed Ferree, Steve Grissom, Bobby Labonte, Kenny Schrader making a visit to the Busch Grand National Series after his victory last weekend, actually last Monday in the 24 hours of Atlanta after that rain delay in the Motorcraft 500. A very important win for that team with the reformed Rick Hendrick Motorsports operation down to just a two-car program, but already showing a lot of success this season with Ricky Rudd second in the points, and of course Kenny Schrader in victory lane for the team. We've been under caution now for 4 laps. We'll stay under it for at least another lap here, as there is a little bit of cleanup work that still needs to be done to the speedway. Robert Presley's lone Busch Grand National victory came back in 1989 in Rougemont, North Carolina, in one of the more exciting races. This is a man who knows how to get around short tracks. He's a kind of driver who doesn't mind trading a little bit of sheet metal with the others on the speedway, and the man right behind him is called the Virginia Gentleman. Jimmy Hensley is one of the most popular drivers in the entire Grand National Series. In fact, his win at Martinsville certainly was one of the most popular that we've seen at any time in recent years because of those financial straits.
It certainly was an interesting circumstance. Everybody always likes to cheer for an underdog, and with his back to the wall when he had to deliver the goods, Jimmy Hensley did just that in Martinsville, Virginia, and he will be somebody to be dealt with this afternoon. You notice the top 4 cars all are known, as a matter of fact, the 5th place car as well, Bobby Donner, all are known for their short track prowess. They are very, very tough when it comes to the short tracks. They always, at some point or another, find their way to the front. And as we again see the Richie Burgess machine on pit road, a lot of damage to that race car. They're trying to fix it as best they can and trying to get it back into the race. And we also see a couple of other cars also on pit road as they're getting some fine-tuning done on their cars that were injured during that crash.
Well, Pat Jones is making his first Grand National start in the number 67 car. He's from the Columbus, Ohio area. The field is reformed, and we're about ready to go back to racing, as lining up on the outside is the lap car of Jeff Gordon. The USAC Midget Champion will sit back and watch as Robert Presley leads them back to green. Jeff Gordon's car doesn't seem to be any the worse for wear. In fact, he's just the kind of block up for the other cars that Robert Presley likes to see. Hensley would love to move around him, but Gordon's car, as you mentioned a few moments ago, Mark, doesn't really seem to be that much the worse for wear. The lone Ford in the field is finding its way around the preferred groove of this racetrack and holding up second through the rest of the field.
Jeff Gordon may be a rookie here for the Busch Grand National Series, but he has run this racetrack twice. Once when it was dirt, once when it was asphalt in sprint cars. So he knows his way around this particular track. A lot of difference between the two racing automobiles, but nonetheless, he's very comfortable because he's been here before. He got a little bit out of shape, and that will certainly cost him, as Jimmy Hensley will make him pay.
And that's the move that was looking to be made by Jimmy Hensley. He wanted just a little bit of a bobble by Gordon. He got it coming off of turn 2 that last time by. He's moved into the position. Look at Elton Sawyer now go below the white line of this track. There really is not an apron per se here. No difference in angle of the pavement. It's just a white line drawn down around the inside. And now Hensley, you can see, closing in now that he is dispatched with Gordon, as now Chuck Bound is moving by Gordon cleanly to stay in the 4th position. Look at Jimmy Hensley closing on the rear of the Oldsmobile of Robert Presley. We could have a battle for the lead here in just a moment.
We also see Kenny Wallace pulling up to the back bumper of Chuck Bound's car. That will be a battle for 4th. Remember, Wallace started 13th. He appears early on in this race, if not to be the quickest, one of the quickest.
And here we go, side-by-side battle for the lead. Hensley down in the preferred groove on the inside. Can he make it stick and take the top spot? By 2 feet, he has the advantage back to the stripe, a 2-foot advantage there, and you can see he is definitely in the right spot at the right moment. Jimmy Hensley, your new race leader on lap 42.
You're also about to find out what happens when you get caught on the outside groove. You don't lose one spot or two. You're going to lose three, maybe perhaps four, as we see Jeff Green now in some problems in car number 86.
A quick spin, but it will not bring out a caution, as the black flag will be coming out momentarily for Cecil Eunice, who was involved in that earlier incident. You might wonder why a driver like Kenny Wallace qualified so poorly, relatively speaking, in the 14th position. Well, drivers actually practiced for this race, the race today, yesterday afternoon, but they qualified last night. They put a premium, of course, on getting a front starting position, but it was more important for them to spend most of their time getting their car sorted out for the heat that they're going to see in this afternoon's contest. Jimmy Hensley now showing the way with Elton Sawyer in the second position. A little bit of smoke coming off rookie contender Troy Beebe's car. We'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of laps. He was not involved in that earlier incident, but he sure is showing plenty of smoke there. Looks like it might be a rear end. Now look at Bound trying to go to the outside over Elton Sawyer for just a moment. Thinks better of it. As we've seen, that's not the best way around. Here's the body work being done on Cecil Eunice's car.
He also just saw passing by him very quickly was that Taco Bell Chevrolet of Troy Beebe. He was given the black flag as you see them working on the left rear of that Oldsmobile, trying to pound away the sheet metal away from the tire, so when they go back out there, it doesn't cut into that Goodyear bias ply tire.
Eunice, a busy racer, ran last weekend in the ARCA show in Atlanta, finished a very respectable fifth, but back up front, you can see now where some of the damaged cars from that first incident begin to pose some minor roadblocks for the race leader. They're given the move-over flag and do so as Jimmy Hensley leads the way. That's Goodyear on the lead car, Hoosier on the second place car. Goodyear brought a different tire compound here for the right side rubber, which of course is a little bit harder than the left side tire. So there was extensive tire testing done here back in January by Kenny Wallace, and we're seeing that that is actually paying off a little bit, as well as Steve Grissom. But the leader at the moment is Jimmy Hensley. The Virginia gentleman has the advantage. We're 1/4 of the way into the Spring 200 from Barberville, Florida.
This week on Nashville Now, the Oak Ridge Boys, Carmen, BB and CeCe Winans, Canyon, John Anderson, Bobby Randall, and Lisa Foster, live this week on Nashville Now.
If you love garden fresh vegetables and beautiful flowers and want to have great gardens of your own, get ready to take down this important telephone number, because I want to send you this great gardens catalog, including details on the legendary Troy-Bilt tiller, absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how to get your own great garden started right with a perfect Troy-Bilt seedbed, how to build your own super-rich organic soil, and take the work out of weeding all season long. Plus, we'll include dozens of Troy-Bilt gardening secrets like how to double your harvest with Troy-Bilt wide rows, how to guarantee great tomatoes every time, and we'll even show you how to build the perfect perennial bed. So for complete details on our whole lineup of legendary Troy-Bilt garden tillers, call today.
To get your free Great Gardens catalog and all the exciting details on our whole lineup of Troy-Bilt tillers, call toll-free 1-800-828-6363. That's 1-800-828-6363. Call now.
Back here at Volusia County Speedway, 55 laps are on the board. Some drivers are coming into the pits to bang out some more of that sheet metal from the earlier incident, but no problem up front for our race leader, Jimmy Hensley, with Elton Sawyer second. And in the corner of your screen, a battle for third is rapidly developing as Chuck Bound and Kenny Wallace are engaged in a fierce tuggle for that position. There you see it, side-by-side battle for the third position. Kenny Wallace, who tire tested here a few weeks back, actually a couple of months back in January, has taken over the third position. And look at David Green, the All-American Challenge Series standout. He's also challenging for the fourth spot.
They stuck behind Bound single file for a number of laps, and Kenny showed David the way around on the outside. So David Green tried the same move, didn't make it stick this time. He may try again as he moves down in turn number 2.
And we are already seeing that there is more than one fast way around this racetrack, and we can only wonder what Chuck Bound's problems are. He looked so good in practice, then he put his qualifying tires back on. Of course, NASCAR impounds the tires after their single lap session, but just not the same tires that he showed in practice. His lap times are not nearly as good as they were before. And David Green, a rookie, really showing some talent here. He's a short track specialist, and this track is to his liking.
David Green has had an up-and-down season. He won the pole position for the Goodies 300 in Daytona. Then he has come back and not been able to make a couple of races, so he's trying to redeem himself today. In that Oldsmobile, you see him drawing up beside Chuck Bound. So you've got the veteran Grand National champion trying to hold off a young rookie driver in David Green of Owensboro, Kentucky.
But most of the veteran drivers in this series will tell you that the race is not won in the first 100 laps. It's won in the last 100 laps. Chuck Bound is in the best spot on the racetrack, which is still down low. David Green heating up his tires, going around on the outside. He's got about a 3/4 length car advantage for the position, but Bound is not about to give up. Does now think better of it, and David Green is now up to 4th place. Rookie showing well here at Volusia. We're going to put a stopwatch on our race leaders here and begin to give you a sense of how tire wear affects the lap times themselves. Jimmy Hensley, of course, is the race leader. As you see our speed shot from coming off of turn 4. Cars are all pretty much taking the same line through there with maybe a 1 or a 2 foot exception. Now, Jimmy Hensley just completed that lap at 17.7 seconds. In about another 20 laps or so, if we stay green, we'll check that once again and see how his lap times have fallen off. The tire wars once again have taken hold here in NASCAR, not maybe as ferocious as they were back when they first joined Winston Cup competition to battle against Goodyear, but Hoosier is here with a tire that they ran at Richmond, and so far it seems to be running pretty well with Eldon Sawyer back in 3rd position. Man on the move through the field is Kenny Wallace. Those tire tests that he did back here in January obviously paying off. The Busch Grand National points leader is setting sail for the leader.
First 4 races, he's had 3 top 5s and 4 top 10 finishes. You can see him now. He has dispatched of Eldon Sawyer, moved into 2nd, is closing in rapidly on Jimmy Hensley. Interestingly enough, you mentioned they came here and tested. They brought back a different car. They just felt this one would be quicker. Apparently, they made the right choice.
Kenny Wallace also holds the distinction of being the only Grand National Series regular to finish in the top 10 in all 4 races so far this season. Obviously, the addition of Steve Byrd as a crew chief has made a significant difference. Here's a man who came over from the Rob Moroso winning championship team of a few seasons back, and last year worked with Steve Grissom and helped him achieve his success, 3rd in the final point standings, and now he's joined the Wallace Racing program. And the proof is in the pudding. The man knows how to set up a car in the short tracks.
And he has a special knack for working with young drivers, putting a car underneath them, and making them understand why the car is going to work in such a fashion and how they should drive it. And because of his past success, they really listen. And he's definitely been a positive influence on Kenny Wallace. And you can see Wallace just gobbling up the daylight between him and leader Jimmy Hensley. And we'll have a very hot battle for the #1 spot here in just a lap or 2.
And you can see that the battle for the lead not only is heating up, it's also showing that Kenny Wallace just assumed catch and get around Hensley. He is clearly the fastest car on the track. He's made up more than 10 car lengths over the past 5 laps. You see the lap time's fallen off a little bit more from the stopwatch we ran just a few moments ago, another 7/10 slower. A lot of teams were concerned about tire wear with the heat of the day. This is really the first hot event that we've seen in the 1991 calendar. This race used to be run in the evening in June. Well, they moved it back earlier into the schedule, and that means that both tire companies tested compounds that could handle the temperature conditions, but there was some concern before the race about possible blistering of tires. Look at Kenny Wallace. He is all the way on the rear bumper now of Jimmy Hensley, and we've got another good battle for the lead. Hensley, the veteran driver. Kenny Wallace, the driver with the unfortunate moniker of promising young driver, but he's had that since he came in the series.
Well, he certainly is one of the best drivers on the series. He dips down underneath Hensley, and he will become the leader of the Spring 200 on lap number 74. So Kenny Wallace puts that Pontiac up front. Hensley comes right back. Kenny Wallace has had a number of close calls. Nashville, Tennessee, 1989. And we see the leaders coming out of turn 4, and now Pat Jones, the rookie, has impacted the concrete retaining wall very hard at the exit of turn 4. Everybody skates by nicely, but we're under caution for the 2nd time this afternoon.
Pat Jones, a rookie from Columbus, Ohio, came south. This is his 4th attempt to qualify for a Grand National show this year. Failed to make 3 of the previous efforts. Did make the field for this race, but he had a rather rude introduction to the wall. His car has come to rest at just short of the start-finish line by about 10 feet.
He really pounded that 4th turn wall. You see here on replay, Jones' car starting to spin now, moving to the outside. It fishtails and then takes a hard turn to the right, hits almost directly head-on into the concrete retaining wall, and you can see the front end of that car buckling, but you see the roll cage of the car keeping the driver very well protected. But Pat Jones really ripped the wall. That's a rookie driver from New Lebanon, Ohio, and that used to be a Pontiac.
Now it's a subcompact. With 76 laps on the board, the leaderboard at this moment is Kenny Wallace, Jimmy Hensley, the David Green machine, Chuck Bonnar pole sitter, and Butch Miller up to 5th.
Butch Miller is on Hoosier tires, another driver on Hoosier tires. Elton Sawyer has been dropping back steadily. There we see a picture of Pat Jones, age 38, and they say now from New Lebanon, Pennsylvania. But a very hard lick, and a lot of times you try to fight the car, try to overcorrect, you'll get that fishtail back to the right. When it cuts hard to the right like that, you're going to hit the wall a ton, and that's exactly what Pat Jones did. We see Elton Sawyer on Hoosiers falling back, and Butch Miller on Hoosier tires coming to the front. But the first 4 cars out there right now, all on Goodyears.
Well, we'll be under caution here for a few minutes while they clear the debris from the front stretch crash. More action from Volusia in just a moment.
In America, your car doesn't just get you from here to there. It's a part of your life. To give your car complete protection, Haviland is introducing new Haviland Formula 3 motor oil with not one but 3 kinds of protection against heat stress, starting friction, and engine dirt. New Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
At All Pro Auto Parts, performance means having the finest quality automotive products and first-class advice from professionals you can trust. At All Pro, performance is our most important part.
Pick up a Motorcraft FL1A filter for only $2.99 at your participating All Pro Auto Parts store.
Performance is our most important part.
In our continuing search for the best of everything, our special segment today applies to all motorists. Straining to see through a rain-soaked windshield is no fun and can be unsafe, but there is a solution. It's called Rain-X, the invisible windshield wiper. It dramatically improves wet weather visibility. After my first application, I was a true believer. Water never slid off a duck's back quite so easily. If you want true performance from a product, go out and get your Rain-X today.
Let's take off our sneakers and get comfortable.
Uh-oh, sneaker odor.
Let's go to the movies.
Tame ferocious sneaker odor with Sneaker Tamers from Odor Eaters. Springy insoles with activated charcoal, the world's most powerful odor destroyer. Sneaker Tamers has it. Scholl's doesn't. Sneaker Tamers absorb sweat, destroys sneaker odor, guaranteed for the life of your sneakers.
No more sneaker odor.
Sneaker Tamers from Odor Eaters.
As Pat Jones' car is being removed from the speedway, we want to remind you that continuing coverage of the Busch Spring 200 on the Nashville Network is being brought to you by Haviland Motor Oil. Get the most out of your car. And let's check in with Bill Hennessy on pit road for an update on doings down there.
We have a number of retirees at this juncture of the race. Who's out is Jerry Meese. He retired to save the car for next weekend's race at Hickory. Tom Peck is out with a broken oil line. Tommy Ellis, the 3rd engine in a row, has gone on his automobile in as many races. A transmission case busted on the Troy Beebe car. Pat Jones, who hit the wall earlier, was in the pits with no brakes, which they tried to fix. That may have been one of the causes that he slammed in the outside retaining wall. With us is Ward Burton, who was involved in the first crash of the day. Ward, what happened out there?
Well, I don't know. It was just good hard racing. I might have come down a little bit, or the fellow behind me came up, but that really didn't hurt us. The car started coming around to me real well. Mr. Henderson, my dad, and all got a good car under me, and the car started handling real good. It just started, temperature started going up on it real bad, so we're going to try to get it cooled down and figure out what's wrong with it and get back out there.
A lot of damage on the front end of the car. Is the track slick at this time?
The track tightened up a little bit there at first, and it looked like after some of these motors let go and all, it started to loosen up a little bit, but the little incident we got in, just mainly cosmetic. I think we're all right if we can get back out there.
Well, it crushed a lot of sheet metal here in the early going at Volusia County in the Spring 200. Certainly nothing like we saw last year when they had 16 total cautions. By this point, after 82 laps of last year's race, we had already had 9 cautions. Now, the reason of our second caution of the day was for the Pat Jones crash. Let's take a look at it once again. He's at the top of the screen on the left. You can see he's way out of the groove. And when that happens, that is nothing but trouble, especially if you don't have brakes. And this is a fairly significant impact. Look at how the fence gave. But the car did its job. It protected the driver's compartment, and that's how these cars are constructed.
Sometimes you may need just to let the car go. He tried to fight with it right to the very end. And we see now Pat Jones on a stretcher, and they'll take him to the Infield Medical Center here at the Volusia County Speedway and check him out. But a very hard impact. But he did appear to be talking to the safety crews, and of course that's always a good sign as we continue under yellow on lap number 83 of this 200-lap race, race number 5 in the 1991 Busch Grand National Series.
That's fairly significant cleanup because from the impact of the wall, there is some debris from the wall itself. Some of the concrete chips were shaken loose. Of course, if you were hit at over 100 miles an hour by a 3,500-pound race car, you'd show little, dents and damages yourself. And then there's just debris from the car itself. The safety crews are cleaning it up just as quickly as they can. This caution flag came out on lap number 75, so this is so far just 8 laps of caution. And the number of caution laps is significant here. We talked to drivers before today's race, and crew chiefs in particular, the men who calculate fuel mileage, and we said, can you go the distance on fuel? And Mark, we got a variety of answers on that.
We certainly did. Most felt that they could with no problem, but there were a few dissenters who thought that maybe they'd need 35 to 40 laps of caution to go the whole way. Now, they weren't the majority, but there was that thought out there, and these early cautions that have taken up quite a few laps are certainly going to help them.
Right at the moment, Kenny Wallace is your race leader with Jimmy Hensley second.
Tag along.
A beautiful sunny afternoon here. Temperature about 84 degrees at race time. A little bit humid, just what you'd expect for Florida at this time of year. And really, a number of drivers prefer hot, humid conditions like this.
They certainly do. They certainly like the heat of summer. They didn't expect it quite so soon here in the spring, but we've never run here this early in the year. One thing that I've noticed this afternoon, and whether or not it has an effect or not, we'll have to wait and see, but we keep seeing the sun pop in and out of the clouds. There is a lot of clouds here today, along with that heat, and right now this half-mile track blanketed under a very hot sun, and that should make a difference, especially in the outside groove where some of that sealer is still there.
Well, Ward Burton mentioned just a few moments ago to Bill Hennessy how the track characteristics have already changed a little bit from tight to loose. And a number of racetracks do change with the change in cloud conditions. A little bit of cloud cover comes, that tightens up the racetrack. The cars don't really want to turn coming off of the turns. But when you see the sun come back out, the temperature builds back into the racetrack. Then the track tends to loosen up just a little bit. Now, look at this. We've seen many cars over the years that handle the cleanup work, the speedy dry dropping. One you just saw a moment ago, there it is once again. This is basically a car that can run on, I guess, just about anything, Mark Hero.
Looks like almost like a mini modified. It's dropping down that material that soaks up the water and oil from that last crash. And, of course, after they spread it out, the cars run it back and forth. And we see some work still going on in the garage area as they're working on one of the machines that was damaged in the first crash of the day. Or that may be the Pat Jones machine that had severe damage done to it when it hit almost head-on in turn 4. And you can see that from the nose of the car all the way back to the motor, including the radiator, just completely destroyed. That is the Pat Jones car. Apparently, he has hurt his foot, but basically, he is okay, and that is certainly good news. You see him now limping off to the Infield Medical Center.
A rather painful debut for this Ohio driver. He is indeed from the Buckeye State, as is another driver in this field, Lonnie Rush Jr. from Pickerington, Ohio. As you can see now, they are trying to get the field reformed for the restart. We're getting a little bit closer to it. They're saying, move up, get closer together. We're going to be going racing again here in just a couple of moments. And this is where both the flagman and the assistant flagman have literally their hands full.
They certainly do. One other thing they're trying to do is get the cars to move up on the racetrack into that speedy dry that was just laid down to soak up the oil and water from Pat Jones's car. And that way, by running over it, they spread it out and away from the racetrack and make conditions safe and green so we can get this race restarted again as we're still working under caution on lap number 88 of the Spring 200.
Steve. Okay.
2, 3. Davy Allison believes. Mario and Michael Andretti believe. Don Prudhomme believes. You get out of a car what you put into it.
Yeah.
Pocono Raceway. It's a little bit of Dixie in the beautiful Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. I'm Richard Petty. Why just watch racing on TV when you can be there? Join me and all the stars of Daytona at Pocono twice this year.
June 16th, Champion Spark Plug 500. July 21st, Miller Genuine Draft 500. Order now by calling 1-800-RACEWAY and get hundreds of dollars of Pocono vacation discounts. Call 1-800-RACEWAY. For a free Pocono vacation travel guide, call 1-800-POCONOS.
John, how you doing? You know AutoZone customers are pretty special. I mean, they take great pains in doing a job just right. So they know exactly what they want. That's why we carry so many parts. And also why we price them so low every day of the week. Because you gotta admire a guy who'll tackle a job like putting in a starter, a water pump, a rack and pinion. And you gotta give a guy like that exactly what he wants. The right parts and the right price.
Welcome back to Barberville, Florida. Continuing coverage of the Busch Spring 200 on the Nashville Network is being brought to you by Haviland Motor Oil. Get the most out of your car.
We're back under green. Kenny Wallace has jumped out to a quick lead over Jimmy Hensley. You see him now on the backstretch, but the battle is for the number 3 spot. You see David Green in car number 8 battling with Chuck Bound, and right there is Elton Sawyer. He's just moved underneath the Butch Miller machine to take the spot. So again, Bound fighting with Green. That is a battle for 3rd spot.
And let's check in with Bill Hennessy on pit road.
Steve.
And we'll get down to Bill in just a moment. Now, Chuck Bound has got a battle on his hands for the next spot on the speedway with Eldon Sawyer, the Hoosier-mounted driver, trying to mount a challenge there. But the driver on the left part of your screen there, Kenny Schrader, battling with Steve Grissom, the Winston Cup regular, the only one in today's field. The same was the situation in Martins. Well, actually, there were 2 drivers in Martinsville, Virginia. Dale Jarrett and Harry Gant both came over from the senior circuit. But as you see there, David Green has now really put a little bit of distance between himself and Bound. Next good position battle on the speedway is Eldon Sawyer trying to close in on that 63 Pontiac and really not having too much success at the moment as the tires are now starting to come back up to temperature.
There you see them battling. There you see almost a gap of 8 car lengths there in your screen. You don't see where the number 6 car is. There you see it there. That is the Steve Grissom machine. He started 19th. The man behind him, Ken Schrader, started 25th. So they've made tracks to the front.
And we have caution on the speedway. Caution on the speedway for a spin on the front stretch. Lonnie Rush Jr., the other Ohio driver in this field, got loose coming off of turn 4, threw up a huge cloud of smoke. And we are back under caution here at the Volusia County Speedway on lap 100, halfway mark, and we're under caution. And here's a replay of the incident near the tail end. And you can see, just begin to get a sense of what happens when tire smoke billows up.
Certainly can. Tommy Houston there, good move in the Roses Buick to move around that race car. He was involved in the first caution flag, that multi-car wreck that we had. Certainly didn't want to be caught up in another one. He was able to sneak by. This race now with these 2 quick cautions taking on a little bit of a look at what we saw last year, where it was sort of a stop-and-go kind of race. And right now, 2 quick caution flags, and we are going back to green very quickly as the flagmen give the 1-to-go sign. Just a spin, they've cleared the track, and Bobby Labonte's Penrose Oldsmobile having a little bit of a problem there, and he backs up just a little bit. Now has refired the car, and he heads on to the front of the pack, being led by the pace car.
Marlon Wright drives the pace car around the Volusia County Speedway at 35 miles an hour. That's a good bit below the race speed, and you can bet he'll get off the track just as fast as he can and get out of the way as the field is about to be turned loose again on lap 103. We go back to green flag action. The Busch Grand National points leader is your race leader. He took the advantage from Jimmy Hensley 35 laps ago and has been in front ever since. David Green is putting on the most impressive charge from his starting position. Back in 10th, he is up to the 3rd spot right now with Chuck Bound 4th. That is the lap car of Bobby Dotter between them. And Kenny Wallace is a driver, as we mentioned before, that sometimes you get labeled with a mantle of promising, which means you haven't fulfilled it yet. But here is a driver, Mark, that I think everyone expects to see future stardom, if not in this division, certainly in the Winston Cup division once he gets some more seasoning.
He is long overdue for a victory on this circuit. He has come close, as I mentioned earlier, Nashville, Tennessee, 1989. Last year at Lanier, ran 2nd to Bound, ran 2nd this year in Rockingham, North Carolina. So he is very much due for a victory. As a matter of fact, if this was a pregnant woman, she should have given birth last year, because Kenny Wallace has been ready to win for quite some time on this circuit.
Only 3 cautions so far here at Volusia County Speedway. We'll be back with the exciting second half in just a moment.
Born of the finest natural ingredients, then brewed and aged with extra care for that clean, crisp, cold taste. The taste only Budweiser can deliver.
Nothing beats a Budweiser.
The king of beers.
Nothing beats a Bud.
And it's another day of sub-freezing.
It's your boss on the phone. He says, do you still work here or not?
I called the airline like you said, and sure, there's a later flight. Tomorrow.
When you just can't wait to get started, start with a Champion from Walmart. Pound for pound, the most powerful automotive battery you can buy. Just $49.96 at Walmart every day.
At All Pro Auto Parts, performance means having the finest quality automotive products and first-class advice from professionals you can trust. At All Pro, performance is our most important part.
Pick up a Motorcraft FL1A filter for only $2.99 at your participating All-Pro Auto Parts store.
Performance is our most important part. Chocolate is crunches, when it crunches. That's why I love Nestle Crunch. That's why I love Nestle Crunch Crunches.
I guess I like things that go fast.
Experience life on the NASCAR circuit as you've never seen before. Call now and order Bill Elliott Racing to Victory and see what life is like for Bill Elliott in and out of Victory Lane. Meet the men responsible for the high technology and the marketing of the man known as $1 Million Bill.
It's $1 million bill from Dawsonville. Look out, the bird is on the loose again. He's got one thing on his mind, driving Coors number 9 down to Victory Lane and the end. Yes, it's $1 million bill from Dawsonville. Look out, the bird is on the loose again. And he's got one thing on his mind, driving Coors number
Order
9.
Bill Elliott Racing to Victory. Don't wait. Call now.
To order, call now 1-800-524-4000. That's 1-800-524-4000.
Coverage of the Busch Spring 200 on TNN is being brought to you in part by the more than 550 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the right parts at the right price.
Kenny Wallace continues to lead this show as we are lap 120. 80 to go, and you see Wallace now coming up on Chuck Bound. Bound has just made a pit stop. The pole sitter was on pit road to change left side tires, so a bad problem for Chuck Bound has basically taken him out of contention in this race. He is 2 laps down. Make that now on the tail end of 1 lap down to Kenny Wallace. He just gets in front of him there, so just about almost 2 laps down to leader Kenny Wallace. And right there in the picture behind Wallace, closing in on him is Jimmy Hensley.
And we had a report that he took on the left side tires, which is a little bit unusual. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, there was some concern about blistering of tires with the temperatures in today's race. Kenny Schrader, we could just see him pulling on the pit road. And back on the speedway, the real battle is for Chuck Bound trying to keep Kenny Wallace in his mirror. That is very important at this point in the event as we've completed 123 laps.
Certainly is, because if he gets a caution flag, he goes back to the front, then he may have a chance to get back on the lead lap. But certainly Chuck Bound's chances for winning here at Volusia County have suffered a major blow with that late race caution for pit stop rather for left side tires.
Well, one of the issues that everybody was looking at was blistering of tires, as we mentioned just a few moments ago. And we asked Steve Grissom, a man who finished 4th here last year, how will the tires be affected racing during the day as opposed to running at night?
I'll tell you, it is kind of different. Usually the Busch cars qualify in the afternoon and race at night, but this time we're qualifying at night and racing in the afternoon. So we kind of had to change and go back and do some things a little different from qualifying to the race. And you know, the tires are going to be so critical that you know, you just need to baby them and try not to build up any heat in them, because you can blister the tires here.
Steve Grissom is another one of those drivers, Mark, that could really use some sponsorship support.
Coming into this race, 3 out of the top 5 point cars from last year, Jimmy Hensley, Steve Grissom, and Tom Peck, all without sponsors, all very capable teams, just haven't been able to find the backing yet for the 1991 season.
But in talking with Grissom before the race, he said, yeah, we just talked with someone in the last couple of days. It looks promising, but in racing, until the check is cashed in the bank and you've got the money in your hand, it really isn't a deal in some cases. If you're just joining our broadcast, Chuck Bound was our pole sitter for today's race, but on the very first lap, Robert Presley jumped into the lead, held it for a while before yielding the point to Jimmy Hensley. And then pretty much from that point forward, once Kenny Wallace worked his way up from his starting position back there in 13th, he took over the lead and has pretty much been dominating the race ever since. And he is moving in now on the Robert Presley machine, the man who set the early pace. Apparently used up his tires ever so slightly, and that's all it takes here. Most drivers say you don't race the first 100 laps, you just try to get good position. It's in those last 100 laps that you try to move forward and be a contender at the finish.
See Kenny now working on the Jeff Burton machine, also back there Tracy Leslie. That may help Jimmy Hensley make up some of the gap that Kenny Wallace had opened up. You see Wallace there working out of turn number 2, and he has no place to go. Burton on the outside, Leslie on the inside. He's got no racetrack, and there's Jimmy Hensley, you see on the inside, moving underneath Presley, right back to the back bumper of Kenny Wallace.
And with 9 rookies in the race, you can get the very sense from drivers who's been around the series for a while that they're concerned. They don't know what these rookies are going to do on the track, when they're going to get in the throttle, get off it. As you can see right there, Tracy Leslie got on the brakes a little quicker than Kenny Wallace thought, and they touched. You can see the touch that Tommy Houston got from the very first incident of the event is pretty substantial, but he has been able to work his way forward from those problems and is running in the top 10. Tommy Houston, a brand new race car. That certainly isn't the way you want to debut it.
Still trouble for Kenny Wallace. Cannot find a way around the two-lap cars of Jeff Burton and Tracy Leslie. Now Leslie simply backed up. He threw out the parachute and let Wallace by. Now Wallace will get to work on Jeff Burton, but that was a big break for Jimmy Hensley. Wallace had moved out to a rather sizable lead. All that tough lap traffic allowed Hensley to close in and take another shot at the top spot.
And Wallace trying to put a lap on Jeff Burton, the South Boston, Virginia driver whose brother, Ward Burton, fell out of this event a bit earlier. The attrition rate really hasn't been too awfully high. Certainly not as high as it was last year when more than 2/3 of the field, 21 cars, were involved in incidents, and some of them more than once.
I thought more remarkable than that, when I looked in the pit area after the race, only 2 cars did not have some sort of mark, tire mark, dent, fender crumpled, or whatever. Just 2 out of the starters from last year's race.
Well, this race so far is 137 laps on the board, and it has essentially been a very clean event, with the exception of that one big incident early on involving 6 cars. Everything else beyond that has been fairly minor in nature, except for Pat Jones' hard hit of the wall coming off turn 4, as we saw a little bit earlier. A bit of a foot injury, but otherwise okay.
I think there's 3 reasons for that. 1, better tire compounds this time, both Goodyear and Hoosier. The second groove working in, the sealer being worn off there. And third, the drivers just used their head a lot more in the beginning of this race than they did last year. They were all very impatient, and it proved very costly. This time they kept their heads, a lot more patience, and we've seen a better race for it.
And one car that we've seen in our long camera shots, a white car that is moving itself up the leaderboard, is car number 52. That is Butch Miller, who drove in Winston Cup last year, an ASA standout for many years. That's the top right portion of the screen there. Butch Miller, the Michigan driver, now running Busch Grand National this year, has worked his way all the way up to 3rd. And that means that those Hoosier tires are working well for him.
Well, Butch Miller is a short track specialist. He's been a winner here on this Grand National Series circuit. Back in 1986, he won at Indianapolis, so he knows how to make these cars work on half-mile racetracks, and he's proving that this afternoon in that Oldsmobile as he's working out of turn number 2 and looking very, very strong. He's got a lot of ground to make up on the lead automobiles, but he is doing just that as he is closing in on Jimmy Hensley and the leader, Kenny Wallace. You can see just at the edge of the screen there, the blue and white car just ahead of car number 52 is Jimmy Hensley. That's the second place machine, so Miller is definitely making tracks towards the front.
Well, here's a driver that makes anything he runs on the short track work. An ASA standout, a Titleist there many times. Went to Winston Cup, didn't work out quite the way he wanted to. Came back to the Busch Grand National Series. Is a master short track driver. Anything under 3/4 of a mile, Butch Miller will always be a factor. And now he's trying to work on one of the rookie contenders, Cecil Eunice. As we mentioned earlier, 9 rookies are in the race, 7 of them official candidates for Rookie of the Year. Cecil Eunice is the points leader in that category, with Jeff Gordon second. They have both had their problems today.
Once again, heavy traffic for Kenny Wallace. There's the Davy Johnson machine, car number 81, and now he will go to work on Elton Sawyer, who was a factor early on in this race, along with Lonnie Rush Jr., so he'll have to dispatch of them before he can once again get some clear racetrack. Working now around Rush, in car number 85 is Kenny Wallace, and just behind him is Jimmy Hensley. You see him sneaking into the picture, car 25, and that white car behind them is the 3rd place car of Butch Miller, and he is definitely catching the leaders. Now, before this race, Elton Sawyer told me that the Hoosier tires, in his opinion, wore just a little bit better, wore just a little bit longer than the Goodyears. Maybe Butch, he couldn't prove it, but maybe Butch Miller is about to.
We have 147 laps on the board. We're almost 3/4 of the way through. A Pontiac leads, an Oldsmobile is second, and an Oldsmobile is third here at the Spring 200.
The other day I get in my car, it won't start. No small problem, right? Well, I figure it's the battery, so I go down to the AutoZone and I tell them what I need. The guy says to me, let's check the old one first. It might not be your problem. Turns out he was right. All I needed was a new battery cable. Talk about saving money. Now you tell me, would another parts store done that? They made sure I got exactly what I needed. Now I'll remember that. Believe me, I will.
already collector's items. Do you have yours? Max Race Cards, featuring all your favorite NASCAR stars, the great moments, the men behind the scenes. Great to collect or trade. 1991 sets are here, and when they're gone, there won't be any more. This handsome 240-card set is only $33. For more details or to order, call 1-800-825-MAX. That's 1-800-825-MAX. Sets are going fast. Order your Max Race Cards now.
2, 3. Davey Allison believes. Mario and Michael Andretti believe. Don Prudhomme believes. You get out of a car what you put into it.
Kenny Wallace has been running the Busch Grand National Series full-time since 1989. He has yet to win, but he is looking like the strongest contender to take victory today as Jimmy Hensley is beginning to fall back, and he's going to have his hands full with Butch Miller in the battle for third on the Speedway, actually the battle for second. Kenny Wallace, a native of Fenton, Missouri. His car owner is Rusty Wallace, and certainly some knowledge has been passed down the line, and there are some good racing genes in that family.
That certainly is the case. They've also got another brother, Mike, who's quite a racer as well, as he proved down in Atlanta during one of the ARCA races, the ARCA race there just last weekend at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. See Kenny Wallace now working some heavy lap traffic. That's Ed Ferree and Elton Sawyer just up ahead. I think one of the biggest learning experiences Kenny's had in quite some time happened earlier this year at Richmond when he battled Dale Earnhardt for the number 2 spot. He eventually lost out in that battle, but by just inches, and he said with Rusty on the radio and you're racing Dale side by side, something has got to rub off.
And something like that gives a driver a lot of confidence. Of course, Earnhardt is nicknamed the Intimidator, and you would think that any Grand National driver that would run along with him would essentially defer to him, but Kenny Wallace did anything but that, and it was by far the best battle on the Speedway over the last 25 laps of that event. Kenny Wallace now circulating around the Volusia County Speedway, this half-mile track located in north central Florida, having things pretty much his way, which is certainly a lot better than last year at this time when he had trouble on the very first lap.
One thing, it's showing that he has certainly matured as a driver, very patient. He'd gotten in that lap traffic. He bided his time. He didn't make any sudden moves. Hensley and Miller closed in. That didn't bother him. He dispatched with those slower cars, then went on pulling out to the lead again as we see Jimmy Hensley now behind the slower car of Ed Ferree. Up ahead, Robert Presley, who led this race in the early going. They separate him from the lead car of Kenny Wallace. And, you know, going back to the patience thing, that's one thing Kenny has had to learn over the years, and that's one thing he felt has been holding him back from victory lane. Perhaps the lessons have been well learned, and it will pay off with his first victory this afternoon as Hensley just can't seem to get in and around the Ferree and Presley machine.
And that has allowed Butch Miller to close in right on his rear deck lid, and that is going to be a dandy battle for second. You've seen it coming now for the last 30 laps or so as Miller has been able to reel into position. It now becomes an issue of where these cars catch lap traffic. As you saw when Hensley was held up behind the Ed Ferree machine, that allowed Miller to close in. Miller was able to easily dispatch with Robert Presley in that spot.
The outside groove is still not the best. It is still a little bit slicker than the inside groove. So if you've got a car that you're racing and trying to lap that is running fairly well, it's still quite a chore to get around them, as you're seeing Jimmy Hensley battling with the Ed Ferree car to try to get him out of the way so he can get after Kenny Wallace again. Miller also closing in there. As you see the flagman giving the lap sign, that's that blue flag with the yellow stripe diagonally across it. That is to make the slower cars aware that their faster cars are coming up. Give them room. Get on the bottom of the racetrack and get out of their way.
And this is by far Butch Miller's best performance of the 91 season. After starting with a 12th down in Daytona, his short track efforts, as we mentioned earlier, he's a threat on any short track, but when you have mechanical failure, you're not going to be a threat at all. A 29th at Richmond, a 29th also at Martinsville, so the very best way to do it right here at Volusia County Speedway is to run up front, and he's doing that.
See Kenny Wallace coming out of turn 4 right now, and way back there with 4 lap cars is the Jimmy Hensley car, and he is caught in a lot of heavy traffic, and Kenny Wallace is pulling away.
And we'll keep watching that battle for second as we're heading toward the closing laps.
Tag along when the Opry takes to the road for a special performance before President Bush. It's Grand Ole Opry in Houston, the Economic Summit, Wednesday night, 8 Eastern on TNN.
The battle for second has allowed Kenny Wallace to pull off to a 2-second lead. Kenny Wallace is now only 31 laps away from that Grand National victory. And what might you think Steve Bird is saying to him over the radio right now?
Stay calm, stay smooth. Save those right side tires. Whatever you do, when you catch the lap traffic wrong, take your time, which is what he's been doing all day long. He is really taking care of that race car, and he's got a lot of race car left as we've got 30 laps to go. Kenny Wallace in very good position. And look at that battle now for second. On the outside, it's Butch Miller. Inside, Jimmy Hensley as they go to dive into turn number 3. Working out of the 4th turn, Miller overpowers him. He takes over the number 2 spot.
And lap traffic was partly a factor there because Hensley was down on the inside. That's where the Steve Grissom car was at that moment. Miller took the advantage. He's now up to second place. The question is, does he have anything left for our race leader, Kenny Wallace?
He's got an awful lot of ground to make up and not a whole lot of time to do it. 28 laps. Wallace is out there by about 3 seconds now over Butch Miller. Miller working out of turn 2 as Wallace is 3/4 of the way down the back straightaway.
And we'll put a stopwatch on the difference between our race leader and Butch Miller in just a moment. And that margin is exactly 2.8 seconds. So we'll see if he can close in further with only 27 laps remaining of the Spring 200 from Volusia County Speedway in a moment.
She may not care that visual perfection took years to develop. She may not care that visual perfection, state-of-the-art technology produces an unsurpassed, deep, rich, brilliant color. Well, maybe she does. Visual perfection from Eagle One, the ultimate auto polish.
They're already collector's items. Do you have yours? Max Race Cards, featuring all your favorite NASCAR stars, the great moments, the men behind the scenes. Great to collect or trade. 1991 sets are here, and when they're gone, there won't be any more. This handsome 240 card set is only $33. For more details or to order, call 1-800-825-MAX. That's 1-800-825-MAX. Sets are going fast. Order your Max Race Cards now.
Don't wait. Get the News Weekly of Motoring, Auto Week. Don't wait for driving impressions. Auto Week drives them all and tells you about them first. Don't wait for car news. Auto Week covers the world, auto shows, the new, the old, and brings it to you fast. Don't wait for racing news. Get the News Weekly of Motoring. Auto Week brings you the winningest coverage first. Don't wait. Get Auto Week, the News Weekly of Motoring, now. Call 1-800-354-6100 for a full year. 52 issues at the special TV price of $19.95. Just 38 cents an issue. Save $80 off the cover price. You've thought about it. Stop waiting. Do it now. Call 1-800-354-6100 for the News Weekly of Motoring.
Kenny Wallace may be just 19 laps away from his first victory. Butch Miller is second, but the battle for third is no longer a battle as Tommy Houston, battered, beaten, and smoking, takes the position from Jimmy Hensley. He's been marching smartly through the field over the last 20 laps.
What a story, the Hickory, North Carolina veteran, the one man who started every single Busch Grand National Series race. He started 22nd, got involved in the first wreck, went into the pit area. You can see the car heavily damaged on the right side, and he just came smoking back up through the field. He's currently in the second spot on the leaderboard. Although we unofficially, we're trying to find where Butch Miller goes now at this particular point. We had him second, but apparently now the leaderboard reads Tommy Houston second, Jimmy Hensley is third, and Tommy Houston is the defending winner here at the Volusia County Speedway, trying to make it 2 in a row, but he's got a lot of ground to make up if he's going to do that, because Kenny Wallace has moved away, gap about 3.5 seconds.
And we were correct all along when we were telling you earlier that Kenny Wallace was the leader and Butch Miller was second. The scoreboard has now indeed been corrected. But Tommy Houston is the man charging. He is now closed in on the rear deck lid of second place Butch Miller, and we'll have a battle there as once again now they are working through heavy race traffic, and this is where experience on the short track matters the most. It's incredible performance by Tommy Houston. That car doesn't look like it should be running all that well, but here's a man who's been able to get hooked up in the second half of this race.
Just ahead of Houston is the number 52 car. That's Butch Miller, the second place machine. And right now, Kenny Wallace is on clear racetrack. The men chasing him are stuck in heavy traffic. That's a big break for him, as we've just got 14 laps to go. Wallace has got it in cruise control right now, while the men battling for second and third have turned it up a notch as they go for that runner-up spot underneath Cecil Eunice. And they'll now work on the back bumper of Elton Sawyer coming out of turn 4. But there it is, the second place man, Butch Miller. And right behind him, the blue and white Buick of Tommy Houston.
And we've got just 13 laps of racing to go. As Elton Sawyer drifts up high, that allows Miller to go underneath. The question is, can Houston dive in there too? He will be able to get underneath. And now here's the battle for second as it heats up with clear racetrack. It looks like Houston has plenty of car left. The question is, track position being what it is, it didn't matter. Tommy Houston sticks on the bottom side of the track as Miller went into turn 2 a little bit too hard. And now he has to chase down Kenny Wallace, an unenviable task because our race leader is a good distance off in the future. We're putting a clock on him right now to see what the margin is between first and second place. Your race leader is there, Kenny Wallace. The margin between the two cars, Houston and Wallace, 4.7 seconds, and he has only 10 laps left to catch him.
After the pit stop earlier for Chuck Bound, he had moved away from Kenny Wallace, and Wallace now has climbed it back up on his back bumper as we see Tommy Houston currently riding in the second spot. But it really appears at this point that Kenny Wallace saved a little something for a rainy day, the last 20 laps of this Spring 200, and is really cranking now as we see Tommy Houston, the veteran from Hickory, North Carolina, who came into this race sixth in the point standing. So with this, a good solid finish today, he'll certainly move up.
And a steady progression forward as the Ed Ferree machine is going to be pushed behind the wall for a day. Tommy Houston, a man who has progressively worked forward in finish standings, finished 16th in Daytona, then a 13th, a 12th, and an 8th. It's obvious that they're beginning to get their program together. They're moving into a brand new race shop up there in the Hickory Conover area, and once they get that complete, it'll be one of the nicest facilities in Grand National Racing.
Final countdown has begun. Tommy Houston will really have to pick it up in a major way to track down Kenny Wallace. This is Wallace's 66th Grand National Series race. Will it become the race where he marks his step up into stardom on this series? We're about to find out. He's just 7 laps now, or 6 laps rather, away from claiming his first victory. You see Kenny Wallace there. He's working out of turn 2 and now moving on the back straightaway as Tommy Houston is just making his entrance into turn 1.
Kenny Wallace came down here in January to test tires for Goodyear. Even though they didn't bring the same car back, they've obviously learned something. The experience of crew chief Steve Bird is important, and with 5 laps to go, he appears en route to that first elusive victory.
Steve Bird apparently has the Midas touch. He turned Rob Moroso and Steve Grissom into a winner. He's about to do it for Kenny Wallace. 4 laps to go for Wallace, and it will keep this amazing streak alive. Wallace has started the year, and he will have 5 top 10 and 4 top 5 finishes to open the season, and he will certainly increase his point lead.
And you notice that Jeff Burton looks in his mirror, sees that the leader is coming up, quickly moves out of the way. There is no challenge now between Kenny Wallace and that Grand National victory that he's been trying so hard to achieve since coming onto the series full-time in 1989.
One other good sign for Kenny Wallace right now, he's got clear racetrack. For the next 2 laps, that's what he'll be facing. Just has to keep the car between the white line and the wall somewhere, and he will grab his first ever Grand National Series victory. He's got 2 laps to go, working out of turn 2.
Less than a mile to go now as he'll come by this time and take the white flag from starter Mike Harwood. 1 to go for Kenny Wallace. The St. Louis, Missouri driver, just 14 seconds away from that first victory, heading down the backstretch the last time. And Kenny Wallace will do it. He will win his first Busch Grand National race here at the Volusia County Speedway. Your Spring 200 winner, Tommy Houston, comes home second. Third place unofficially credited to Butch Miller. fourth to Jimmy Hensley, and fifth to David Green. And the smile in that car will stretch from window post to window post.
This victory, very deserving for Kenny Wallace. It showed just how far he has come as a race driver, showed a lot of patience early on, and like a horse race, when he got to the top of the stretch, he went to the whip. He had plenty of thoroughbred there, and he went on to this victory very easily in the Spring 200.
Kenny Wallace is no longer a promising young driver. He has fulfilled that promise here today.
He's arrived.
And it'll be just a few moments before he collects his thoughts and steps out of the car to the tribute of the crowd as well as the other competitors. This will be a popular victory throughout the garage as well. Tommy Houston, a nice job today.
What a great run. Again, in that first caution, flag got wrecked, and there's Kenny Wallace jumping on top of that Pontiac and waving to the crowd here at the Volusia County Speedway. This will be a very popular victory. Kenny is well liked within the garage area, and even though they compete against this guy week after week, they knew sooner or later it just had to happen, and it comes 5 races into the 1991 season. In his 66th race, Kenny Wallace has become a winner on the Grand National Circuit.
And just look at the celebration down there. Those people have worked hard. A beautiful race shop near the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And we'll be checking in with the happy winner down at Victory Lane in just a moment as the cars have fallen silent here at Volusia County Speedway, the 5th different winners so far this season.
In America, your car is not just something you own. It's a part of your life. To give your car complete protection, Haviland is introducing new Haviland Formula 3 motor oil with not one but 3 kinds of protection against heat stress, starting friction, and engine dirt. New Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
And it's another day of sub-freezing.
It's your boss on the phone. He says, do you still work here or not?
I called the airline like you said, and sure, there's a later flight tomorrow.
When you just can't wait to get started, start with a Champion from Walmart. Pound for pound, the most powerful automotive battery you can buy. Just $49.96 at Walmart every day.
The critics agree on TNN's American Music Shop. A truly wonderful show, says the Oakland Tribune. It's terrific, says United Feature Syndicate. It's a gem, the Philadelphia Inquirer. New York Newsday calls it intriguing.
It's gotta come from the heart if you want it to work.
The American Music Shop. Saturdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, only on TNN, the heart of country.
1, 2, 3, key start.
Find out who will be the next megastar on the nationwide talent search Be a Star, premiering April 1st on TNN.
The 34 Classic Street Rod. It's hot, available, very affordable, fun to drive, easy to assemble. Call 1-800-328-5671 for more information on this special offering of the 34 Classic Street Rod and other timeless classics from FiberFab International. Call now 1-800-328-5671. The power and the grace of a thoroughbred, the FiberFab Speedster. The exhilaration and speed of the Speedster Californian. Build your dream today. Own a FiberFab Speedster at an amazingly affordable price. Call 1-800-328-5671 for more information on the special offering of the FiberFab Speedsters and other timeless classics from FiberFab International. Call now 1-800-328-5671.
TNN's coverage of the Busch Spring 200 is being brought to you in part by Budweiser, the king of beers with that distinctively clean, crisp, cold taste. Nothing beats a Bud. Now let's go down to Victory Lane with a happy crew chief and Bill Hennessy.
Well, the winner of the race-winning car, nothing like it's for Steve Bird, who's also the crew chief for the race. Congratulations, Steve. Again, you brought a young driver to Victory Lane.
Well, I'll tell you, he's a real good driver. He's got a real good car owner, his brother. And this team is tough. This team is just unreal. Everybody working here, they're all hard workers, and that's what you need to win races.
Was the qualifying last night indicative of what this race was going to be all about?
Well, Kenny thought he ran a real good lap qualifying, but, just so smooth that we didn't run a good lap. But we knew we had a good race car. This Cox Mobile 1 Miller Genuine Draft car was really running.
It's early in the season. You guys have maintained your point lead. At the conclusion of this race, do you think you can win the national championship?
Well, anything can happen. I've been through this with, like Rob. We thought we had it won, and we had some bad times during the summer. You can have bad luck anytime. But I tell you, this team's so strong. The maintenance of the cars and the way they're prepared. I hope we don't have a bad time, and I hope it keeps going like this because I want to win races.
Was there any time during the day that you seemed to be worried about Kenny's progression through the field?
Well, about 20 to go, he thought he was losing the motor, dropping a valve. But I think it was just a little vibration from the tires. The Super Goodyears just started blistering a little at the end there, and I think that's what he felt, not the motor. So that was the only concern. It was concerning, though.
Congratulations on your victory here this afternoon at Volusia County and also being named the crew chief of the race, Bertie.
Thanks a lot.
Steve Bird, the winning crew chief here for the Kenny Wallace entry.
Mark, how many times have we heard the squeaks and groans of a race car when somebody's out front?
They certainly make a lot of different noises, and if you noticed with Steve Bird, that accent wasn't south of the Mason-Dixon line. Steve, of course, up from the Massachusetts-Connecticut area. He originally started in the NASCAR Modified Series, moved south to help out Rob Moroso, and since then, as we've documented in the broadcast, he has brought 3 young drivers along to Victory Lane on the Busch Grand National Series. First, Rob Moroso, Steve Grissom last year with 4 victories, and with Kenny Wallace winning his first race just 5 races into this season, you've got to believe there's a few more left in that gun by season's end.
Now, he walked into the Winston Cup division with Rob Moroso when he ran for Rookie of the Year, but then decided that he was happy to go back to the Grand National Series. He likes to have his Sundays off, and he's going to have a great Sunday next to the man who's got the winner's trophy in his hand with Bill Hennessy.
Well, Kenny Wallace. Kenny, it's been a long time since you visited Victory Lane. Last time in the American Speed Association. You finally picked one off, and your brother's not here.
No. Hey, Rusty, what do you think of that, huh? Man, that was great, I'll tell you. I just want to thank Rusty and Patty. Without my brother and his wife, I wouldn't be here. Through perseverance, watching me go through the hard lumps, and finally got a great crew here. Steve Bird, the crew chief. Thank you, Tommy. Man, I appreciate it. I can't say enough about my guy, Steve Bird, my new crew chief. Toucan, I feel so great for him. He's been a long time, and I tell you, I'm not speechless, but I could just go on and thanking everybody. Cox Treated Lumber. Them people been with me 3 years, and I've had a bet. I get to pay my car owner or Hayes Armstrong $20. I've had a $20 in my pocket since I've ever started this series, and he told me pay it when we win, so this is great.
This has got to be a great moment for you. Not only winning, but you're also in the points lead, like we talked with Steve Bird, your crew chief. Now you put yourself in a position that once you win in the series, you seem to be able to get another one and another one. What does the rest of the season look like for you?
Well, I was always scared that maybe I didn't know how to win, but, man, there's been 3 or 4 times I was leading 2 laps ago, something happened, I knew how to win. And, with about 20 to go there, I felt the vibration, and I was running really wide open up off the corners. The car was hooked up, so I told the boys how big a lead I had. And, I'm spoiled. My brother flew me down here. I won the race. I mean, this is just great. But I tell you, I've worked long and hard for this, and, man, I just can't believe it.
Were there any close calls for you this afternoon?
Well, not really. I think everybody was racing hard. I pushed traffic real hard, and basically at the end of the race, everybody knew that all my buddies out there, all the race car drivers, a good friend of mine, and we all raced hard. They knew there was 10 to go, and they was all moving out of the way for me, and I tell you, I'm going to thank them a lot.
Congratulations from everybody on TNN. We'll see you at Hickory Speedway next Sunday afternoon.
Thank you. Hey, Mom, Mike, Dad, Millie.
A very happy winner, Kenny Wallace here at Volusia County.
I think he got just about everybody in there. He did a great job today. Kenny Wallace, first victory, and I'll tell you what, that's going to be a happy group tonight and well-deserved.
27-year-old Kenny Wallace has been competing in the Busch Grand National Series since 1989. He has the problem that some drivers have when they come from famous racing blood. They tend to be compared to their siblings or to their parents. Kyle Petty can address that issue he can address that in volumes over the years, but Kenny Wallace now is beginning to fulfill that promise that many people saw for him. For a long time, people have considered him one of the very best drivers in that series.
I know Rusty is, always said that he's been a great race driver. He just needed time, and he had, again, 66 races and then notched that first victory. But with wins like this and the strong start that he got off to in 1991, he starts to climb out from underneath that shadow. He's his own man. He's his own driver. He has a little bit of a different style than Rusty's, and it's adapted very well to the Busch Grand National Series. And Kenny Wallace is going to be in this championship hunt right down to the wire this year. He's jumped out to a quick lead, and if he keeps running like this, he'll have them buried before they even get a chance to look for daylight as he looks for his first championship. And certainly, again, winning a race so early in the season, you've got to believe 4 or 5 more could be in the offing for Kenny Wallace.
And we'll be back with more from Barberville, Florida in just a moment, where Kenny Wallace is your winner. Put that back.
Why do fools fall in love? Why do opposites attract? Why do gentlemen prefer blondes? Why do women have all the answers? Why? Ask why? Try. Cold filtered for smooth draft taste. Dry brewed for no aftertaste. Because if true love's not the answer, true refreshment must be.
And it's another day of sub-freezing.
It's your boss on the phone. He says, do you still work here or not?
I called the airline like you said, and sure, there's a later flight tomorrow.
When you just can't wait to get started, start with the Champion from Walmart. Pound for pound, the most powerful automotive battery you can buy. Just $49.96 at Walmart every day.
Pocono Raceway. It's a little bit of Dixie and the beautiful Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. I'm Richard Petty. Why just watch racing on TV when you can be there? Join me and all the stars of Daytona at Pocono twice this year.
June 16th, Champion Spark Plug 500. July 21st, Miller Genuine Draft 500. Order now by calling 1-800-RACEWAY and get hundreds of dollars of Pocono vacation discounts. Call 1-800-RACEWAY. For a free Pocono vacation travel guide, call 1-800-POCONOS.
John, how you doing? You know AutoZone customers are pretty special. I mean, they take great pains in doing a job just right. So they know exactly what they want. That's why we carry so many parts. And also why we price them so low every day of the week. Because you gotta admire a guy who'll tackle a job like putting in a starter, a water pump, a rack and pinion. And you gotta give a guy like that exactly what he wants. The right parts and the right price.
I listen to a lot of different kinds of music, but for the kind of music that I play and that I want to write, Merle Haggard set the standard. When I'm singing on stage, I just try to enjoy myself and try and get as much out of the faces of the people that I can see in the audience. It's a platform for us to be able to speak to and perform for all of the country and probably someday all the world.
Join us next Sunday when TNN goes to Hickory, North Carolina for live coverage of the Busch Grand National Mountain Dew 500. Next Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern on TNN.
Of the Busch Sprint. The Nashville Network has been brought to you by Haviland Motor Oil. Get the most out of your car. By Eagle One Car Care Products. Eagle One is visual perfection. By Champion Batteries, when you can't wait to get started. And by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light.
And a man who had a great run, despite his car being beaten, battered, and smoking, is now with our Bill Hennessy in the garage.
No? Okay, here we are with Tommy Houston. Tommy? A good, strong run, but you had some problems there at the beginning. Looked like it was going to take you completely out of the race.
Yeah, they had a big wreck up here and on the front stretch, and Ed Barrier, he stopped rather rapidly, and I got into him and knocked the fender in on the tire, and the car pushed after that the rest of the day. But, you know, we made some adjustments on it and run a good pace, and then the oil temperature started going up on it. And, you know, I just kept pacing. The car was still real good at the end, but I knew Kenny's car was awful good, too. So I could make a little time up on him, but not a whole lot.
Had you not been involved in the accident, do you think you were dialed in today since you were the defending race winner here?
Well, we were dialed in, but, you know, I think it would have still come down between Kenny and I. There again, his car was awful good, and he and I both were on Goodyear tires, and we ran them the whole 200 laps, and they held up good. And, you know, we was trying a new Bilstein shock down here today, and, you know, I think that had a lot to do with the car holding its pace. But this Rosie Store Buick, it come on through, and we'll take second. That's not so bad.
We go to our home track next weekend.
Oh, yeah, looking forward to going back to Hickory, seeing all the race fans, and we'll see if we can't reverse that role with Kenny up there next weekend.
He's still going to be running hard next weekend at Hickory Speedway. Of course, we're talking about Tommy Houston. He'll be racing at his home track.
The only man to run every single Busch Grand National race since the series was formed in 1982, Tommy Houston. We'll be back with more from Florida in just a moment.
And there's the checkered flag.
When the race is over, the scene begins. The Winston Cup scene. It's the largest and most informative NASCAR Winston Cup newspaper in the country. The pages of the Winston Cup scene are loaded with up-to-date information, insightful editorials and commentary, expanded coverage of each race, entertaining feature articles, the latest news, terrific photography, complete statistics, and even the gossip.
45 great issues, only $35. Call 1-800-800-2025 or send check or money order to Winston Cup Scene today.
Hey, Bill, checking out the scene? How'd I do?
Well, let's see. Petty. Richard Petty?
Why don't you take over? I'm into the scene. Why don't you get into the scene, too?
For the best in motorsports reading, it's Winston Cup Scene. Call 1-800-800-2025. MasterCard, Visa accepted.
How would you like to win a whirlwind tour of Texas? There's more to see and do in the Lone Star State than you can imagine. For your chance to win, write your name, address, and phone number on a postcard and send it to Whirlwind Tour of Texas Sweepstakes, care of TNN, the Nashville Network. Box 10371, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. You and a guest will visit San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, and Houston. You'll see 3 great country music concerts and a taping of TNN's The Texas Connection. Entries must be received by April 15th.
In most commercials for Choice Hotels International, someone famous pops out of a suitcase. But the star of this commercial is the Choice Yellow Ribbon Fund, created for the American Red Cross. To support our troops and their families, we're donating $5 for every reservation made and used through our special 800 number at a Quality, Comfort, Clarion, Sleep, Roadway, Friendship, or Econo Lodge hotel. The Choice Yellow Ribbon Fund. Call 1-800-4-CHOICE. You'll be doing your part for those who are doing theirs. The Grand Ole Opry hits the road. Join Opry greats as they perform for President Bush at the Historical Economic Summit in Houston.
We are very grateful to each and every one of you, all who made this spectacular evening possible. Thank you very, very much.
The Grand Ole Opry in Houston for the Economic Summit. Wednesday at 8 and 11 Eastern on TNN.
Monday night, the Oak Ridge Boys host a very special Gospel Nashville Now show featuring special guests BB and CeCe Winans. Monday night, 9 Eastern on TNN.
Butch Miller has had a difficult season so far, but he was part of a race record pace today here at Volusia County Speedway set by Kenny Wallace. That's a race record, 85.918 miles per hour. Nothing like the race we saw last year, which was just barely over the national speed limit. Let's check in the garage with Butch Miller, who finished third today.
37, 49,
what's going on here?
75, 15.
You're on.
5.
There we are with Butch Miller. Butch, third place finish. You got to feel pretty good after some disappointing runs earlier this year.
Well, we've had some bad luck. We ran pretty good at Daytona and crashed a couple times and blew one motor up. But we had a little Chevrolet V6 in there today, a little 4.3 liter. Most of these guys try and run Buicks, and thing ran like a top.
How'd the race go for you? You looked like you drew a bead on the leader, Kenny Wallace, there with about 150 laps into the race, 160 laps, and all of a sudden you started falling off and fell back to third.
Well, you know, unfortunately, we had started the race a little bit on the loose side, you know, and you know, it was just a mistake, and I had to baby the car. I babied it and babied it and babied it. You know, this morning in practice, we ran extremely fast, you know, like a couple tenths faster than the pole, and so we knew we were good. But we got out there and we were loose, and I babied it for as long as I felt like I could, and I burned the rear tires off the car.
It looked like this racetrack was very favorable to you and your driving style.
The slipperier it is, the better I like it. That, you know, and the more that the track swings to Butch Miller, and it was really slippery out there today.
Obviously, we like to throw a Burr Rabbit to the Briar Patch, and the Briar Patch was here today for you.
Yes, sir.
Well, Butch, we'll see you at Hickory Speedway next weekend with a good, strong run up there. We're looking forward to seeing you back there.
Well, is that live, too? Is that live also?
Oh, yes, live on TNN.
Oh, that's terrific. We're glad to have you guys around this year.
Well, that's Butch Miller and his comments here following the race at Volusia County.
Yes, thank you very much, Butch, for giving us our live promo for next Sunday's race right here on TNN. That'll be the Mountain Dew 500 from the Hickory Motor Speedway, Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNN. And as Butch just said, it's live.
Give him the $10 you promised him.
No, folks, no. That's not even a good joke, but we do appreciate his kind comment. Now, let's talk about two gentlemen who are related to an outstanding run today, and that is, of course, David Green, who finished 5th, and Jeff Green, his brother, who finished 6th.
Tell you what, it's been a long season for both of those drivers. David Green, of course, is running the full circuit, running for the Rookie of the Year championship. You see Jeff Green's car there, beaten and battered, but he brought that home to a great finish. You know, coming into this race, David had a 30th at Daytona. He missed the field at Richmond after winning the pole at Daytona, 13th at Rockingham, 30th at Martinsville, and then, of course, he comes home 5th place today. And in Jeff's case, he's run just 2 races coming into this event, had 18th at Rockingham, 21st at Martinsville, so he's made a major improvement.
And sometimes this happens to rookies. David Green had to climb into John Linville's car in Martinsville, Virginia, because he was unable to qualify his. And Richmond, the problems that he had there, had mechanical failure on his qualifying effort, and because he had crashed at Daytona, he had no points to fall back on to get in the show. Such is the fate of a rookie driver in Grand National competition.
It's a very humbling series, especially when it comes to the short tracks and qualifying. As we mentioned, David went out, won the pole for Daytona, then he's had just a very hard time in qualifying ever since then.
Well, Jimmy Hensley tried to make it 2 in a row today. He couldn't quite do it. He finished 4th, but he's downstairs with our Bill Hennessy.
Jimmy Hensley, 4th place here. Wasn't exactly like the win you got a couple of weeks ago at Martinsville, Virginia, but you got to be pretty happy.
Well, pretty happy, Bill. You know, started 5th today and stayed up, you know, led some of the race and stayed in top 2 or 3 most of the day. And I thought, you know, without sponsorship and all, we're running pretty good right now. You know, we'll take a top 5 anytime in the Busch Series. It's a very competitive series, and like I say, if you can run top 5, top 10 every race, and that's what we've done since Daytona, is top 10 every race. So we feel pretty good right now if we just get some help, you know, money-wise, and keep this thing going.
How many more races Don Beverly say you got this season?
Well, we're going now through Bristol, I think. Let's make our women know between now and Martinsville, we're probably going to be it, you know, and I was fortunate enough to win that race, so he extended it 4 more races, so maybe if I win another one, he'll extend it some more. So we'll just keep going, you know, hard as we can and just as long as we can.
Your regular job's an oil truck driver, drive around a big heavy truck all week long, and I imagine a lot of customers stop you and say, Jimmy boy, you sure did great at Martinsville a couple of weeks ago, and they'll probably say, saw you yesterday on TNN.
Well, they might do that. Like I said, the week after the Marvel race, you know, a lot of people did you know, stop, wave at me on the road, or whenever I'd stop it for delivery, you know, they come up and talk, and I got a lot of fan mail too through the mail, and it was great. It's always great to win, and that's something we're going to try to keep doing every race.
What does it mean to you when those folks come up to you and slap you on the back and start talking about racing?
Well, it just, you know, makes you feel good. Anytime you win, it gets adrenaline going, and you know, for people to come up and they really look like they really mean it, you know, that's what really makes you feel good, and somebody come up and congratulate you and know they really mean it. So, you know, we put on a show for the people, and it's good to know that they appreciate it, you know, and enjoy it.
Looking forward to Hickory?
And we're looking forward to all of them right now, really. I think we're running real good this year, and hopefully we can just keep going maybe and try to catch O'Kenny in this point race.
Well, Jimmy Hensley's out to win a national championship. If he can just get a little sponsorship, a little help, he may very well do that.
Jimmy Hensley, one of the real gentlemen of the sport. We'll be back in just a moment to give you the unofficial rundown here from the Spring 200 at the Volusia County Speedway in Barberville, Florida. You see your top 10 finishers there. Chuck Bound, the pole sitter, had trouble all through the event, but Bobby Labonte, by finishing the position he did, has lost a little bit more ground. There's your rundown as you see it there. We'll give it back to you just as soon as we return here for more action from Barberville, Florida. You're watching live TNN coverage of NASCAR Busch Grand National Racing.
2, 3. Davey Allison believes. Mario and Michael Andretti believe. Don Prudhomme believes. You get out of a car what you put into it. Yeah.
Shine a light on you, shine a light on me. Keep your Bud Light shining for everyone to see.
When you're looking good, you want Bud Light. The clean, fresh taste won't fill you up and never let you down.
You can taste it, you can feel it. You know you got it right. Everything else is just right. Just keep your Bud Light shining. Everything else is just right. You got to shine on. Everything else is just right.
And it's another day of sub-freezing.
It's your boss on the phone. He says, do you still work here or not?
I called the airline like you said, and sure, there's a later flight. Tomorrow.
When you just can't wait to get started, start with the Champion from Walmart. Pound for pound, the most powerful automotive battery you can buy. Just $49.96 at Walmart every day.
Pocono Raceway. It's a little bit of Dixie in the beautiful Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. I'm Richard Petty. Why just watch racing on TV when you can be there? Join me and all the stars of Daytona at Pocono twice this year.
June 16th, Champion Spark Plug 500. July 21st, Miller Genuine Draft 500. Order now by calling 1-800-RACEWAY and get hundreds of dollars of Pocono vacation discounts. Call 1-800-RACEWAY. For a free Pocono vacation travel guide, call 1-800-POCONOS.
Two of my childhood heroes were Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. I loved the way they acted and I loved the way they sang. I used to have my cowboy guns on and shoot them up during the shows. The road can get hard, and sometimes you want to come home, but just as soon as I come home, I want to leave again. So, you know, I know why Willie wrote the song On the Road Again. It's done an incredible amount for the country music industry, and I'm very proud to be on it.
Back here at Volusia County Speedway, where Kenny Wallace is a happy man having picked up that first Busch Grand National victory. A reminder, folks, that this telecast of the Spring 200 is produced under broadcast rights granted by the Volusia County Speedway and is intended for the private use of our audience. Any retransmission or reuse of the pictures, accounts, or descriptions of this event without the expressed written consent of the Nashville Network and Southeastern Communications Group is prohibited. The announcers selected for this telecast are employed and compensated by Southeastern Communications Incorporated. Let's go back down to the garage and Bill Hennessy with David Green.
David Green, you started in 10th place. You had a little experience at this racetrack prior to this afternoon, racing in the NASCAR All-American Challenge Series. A 5th place, a hard-fought battle.
Yes, it was. I'm tickled to death. The TIC Oldsmobile ran perfect. I really feel like it's probably maybe a good 2nd or 3rd place car, but our plan was perfect to lap 140. Then lap traffic, I kind of overheated the tires a little bit, and I feel like inexperience in these kind of cars caused that. So I kind of fell back there a little bit, and we ended up blistering some tires. But I mean, we're tickled to death. The deal at Daytona sitting on the pole was a big highlight in my career, and then having problems at Martinsville, and now coming here and getting a good finish and a real competitive run, we're tickled to death.
I think you're settled in now for the 91 racing season. Are you ready to do it?
Yeah, you know, again, Daytona was the biggest highlight of my career, and it came so quick, you know, and it was too much to handle too quick. But now I think we had a good run at Rockingham, and now today, and this team is great. The guys that work on the car, the motors, the cars, the car owner, the sponsors, everything's perfect. And if they can just put up with my inexperience for a little while, we'll be fine.
When we talk about an experience, you're one of the Rookie of the Year challengers right now. You probably moved up a few positions in the points with this afternoon's 5th place finish. Would you like to win that title?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I keep looking at Kenny Wallace. Every time we go out and practice, I'm right behind him because it just seems like, you know, 3 years ago he sat on the pole at Daytona, and now, you know, he's been close a lot of times, and now he won today. So I really look forward to him, and he's teaching me a whole lot, and I'm really like to win that title this year.
Well, Kenny's giving him a little insight, and he was the winner today from Daytona, from Volusia County Speedway here, right near Daytona. This is Bill Hennessy along with David Green. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, let's give you the final unofficial rundown for today's running of the Spring 200. Of course, your winner, Kenny Wallace. The defending race champion, Tommy Houston, was second, followed by Butch Miller in third. Jimmy Hensley with a fine run in fourth. And as you just heard, David Green happy with his 5th place performance. 6th place to his brother, Jeff Green. The Owensboro, Kentucky driver is making that town proud today. Bobby Labonte finished 7th, followed by Todd Bodine, Steve Grissom, and our pole sitter, Chuck Bond, never really had his car quite right today. He finished 10th.
In the 11th spot, the rookie Lonnie Rush, 12th to Elton Sawyer, 13th to another rookie driver, Jeff Gordon. Robert Presley led this race early. He winds up 14th. 15th spot goes to Chicago, Illinois' Bobby Dotter. 16th spot, Tracy Leslie. Jeff Burton winds up 17th. 18th, Dave Resendiz. The Florida native, Joe Nemechek, ends up 19th. And rounding out the top 20, the Pennsylvania driver, Davey Johnson.
Unofficially, as we have it, 21st goes to Cecil Eunice, another rookie driver in the series. 22nd spot to Rich Burgess. 23rd, another rookie. The rookies seem to have congregated there in the second portion of the field. Ed Ferree. Ward Burton was the 24th place finisher. 25th to Ken Schrader, who was running well early but then had problems on lap 122 and fell from the event. Ed Barrier from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, finishes 26th. And Pat Jones, involved in that hard crash in turn 4, which he suffered a apparent foot injury, sits back in the 27th spot. 28th to Troy Beebe. The 29th position, Tommy Ellis, who had mechanical failures. Tom Peck in 30th. This could be his last Grand National race. That team said they were just about out of money. 31st, Richard Lassiter climbed into the Gary Neese machine. And that is your entire unofficial 31-car finishing field for today's race.
Really looking forward to Hickory, North Carolina now as Kenny Wallace came of age today at the Volusia County Speedway in Barberville, Florida with his first victory. We should see a great race next week in Hickory, North Carolina. Should be just as good as we saw today.
And Tommy Houston is the defending champion of that race, a man who won the very first asphalt race ever run there, late model sportsman back in the mid-1960s. That will do it for us from the Volusia County Speedway. We hope you've enjoyed TNN's coverage of the NASCAR Busch Grand National Series, the Spring 200. For Bill Hennessy and Mark Arrow, this is Mark Allen inviting you to join us next Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. right here on the Nashville Network for the Mountain Dew 500. Goodbye.